Hello everyone, my name is Mariam and I studied primary education at the University of Greenwich. I graduated in 2022 and since then I've been doing supply teaching. In this video I wanted to explore the world of supply teaching and what it's like. I wanted to do this video to kind of help those who are doing supply ease into supply and just explore what it's like to do supply. So I hope you do enjoy this video. One thing I think is so important when you're going into I didn't even talk about what supply teaching is. So supply teaching, it's just when you work with an agency and instead of being in like a permanent school, that agency gives you work in like different schools. You can do like long term or you can do short term. With long term supply, it could probably be like you spend 1 to 3 months or longer in one particular school, while like short term or even day to day can be like, oh, we spend 3 days in one school or 1 day in one school. It depends on your personal preference and or even just like what the agency has to offer you. So depending on which one you want to do, I think it's really important to know the agency's expectation of you and the school's expectation of you being in that school. For example, does the agency expect you to write a report at the end of the day detailing what the class was like for when the class teacher comes back? Just to add on, when you do supply teaching, it's usually because that teacher for that class isn't in doing supply teaching. It's important to know the agency's expectation of you and the school's expectation of you. For example, like I said, do they expect you to write a report at the end of the day for the class teacher, the detailing like the behavior, what was taught, what maybe wasn't taught, talk about like are there any news or notices that they should know, whether any challenging behavior that the teacher might want to address. From the school standpoint and the agency standpoint, what do they expect from you in terms of marking? So alongside knowing your role, like in terms of teaching and planning and marking and assessing, it's also important to kind of know the behavior, because a lot of schools handle behavior differently. For example, some schools don't like you to raise your voice at children. They prefer like positive praise. It's important to understand what the school's reaction to behavior is like. Do they like positive praise? Do they like stickers? Do they give you reward systems? Do they keep children in for break and lunch if they don't do the learning or don't do what's right? Or do the school not like that? Because I know some schools, they don't want you to keep children in during break or lunch, but I know some schools they do that. Some schools will keep you in at lunch and will keep you in at break. To understand the school's expectation on behavior or safeguarding or just like overall or just different policies without the school, it's important then to talk to the teachers in the school, maybe the teacher who's helping you figure out what you're doing for today, just to kind of get an understanding of how the school is run. It allows for consistency in the classroom because the children know that you know what you're doing and you're not just like introducing anything new or doing something that they are unsure of, which is again important for maintaining consistency, important in establishing boundaries, expectations, and rules for you in the classroom. Also, if you're able to adopt their behavior strategies, able to adopt their policy on this, policies on that, they will see that you're good at taking initiative. It shows that you're also kind of a good fit for the school because they can see that you're meshing really well with the children, meshing well with the school. It shows that you're able to take on board their values and their aims, which is also good because if you want a permanent role maybe in that school, or if they're looking for a permanent teacher for like the following term or following year, they know that okay, they can see, they acknowledge your effort that you put in in your supply teaching, and they might decide, okay, this person's perfect for this role. Or they might think, okay, we would like for you to come for an interview or you to come to teach a lesson, so they can employ you. By just putting in that effort, they might remember you more, and therefore if there's a possible role, they might decide, okay, this person's perfect for this, or we can invite this person for an interview, which again allows you to possibly, if you're thinking about it in the future, having a permanent role at that school. Alongside adopting the school's behaviour strategies and the expectation of behaviour, it's also good to have your own attention grabbers or ways that you react to behaviour, positive and negative behaviour. First of all, it kind of shows your confidence, and by already having those established strategies, you kind of also feel more grounded. You're able to kind of get the children's attention back, especially like if they're off task, you don't know a lot of the children's names, or they're talking a little bit more, which might be just because you're new, especially if you're new or you don't know how that school works or you don't know the names. It's really good to have like your own attention grabbers, your own behavior strategies, because it does kind of add to your confidence. It's also a good way to get the children's focus back on you, get their attention back on you, especially like in those moments where like there's just a lot of noise, there's a lot of children walking around. It's important to kind of have those quick like hands up or claps, so the children know like the teacher wants my attention, or okay, like everyone needs to like focus now. I would also say this is one thing I do in every morning. I always kind of talk to the children about it, like, so especially like with younger years, I always go, if I clap my hands or put my hands up, I would like everyone's focus on me, and we practice it. And throughout the day I just remind them what are my expectations, what did I say with my hands up, and with that they know, oh, if Miss does this, she means this. They're more kind of just inclined to follow, they're more inclined to kind of understand, okay, this means this. That kind of also ties into behavior too though, because I know some schools don't like certain behavior strategies. So for example, I went to one school and I clapped and the children didn't respond, which I was like, oh, like, which first of all made me realize how that wasn't universal, like that doesn't happen in all schools. When I spoke to one of the teachers after, she said, oh yeah, no, we don't do that in the school because you're kind of taken away from the learning. Like I forgot what she said in particular, but she said that it's taken away from the learning. That's not what you want the children to do. You just want their attention, so clapping isn't helping with that. They're just clapping, which is interesting because some schools still do that and some schools think it's a really good way to get their attention. Another school, they don't do stickers at all. From nursery to year 6, they don't do stickers. I do know that one school, they don't do stickers as well, but it's just basically like, it's something about like, oh, like this should be universal, like they should be doing this without the sticker. And I think also a part of it was, it's quite difficult for certain children to follow certain rules for a certain reason. It might be hard for certain children to follow certain rules, so by just giving stickers to the children who are showing good behavior, like just sitting still, you're kind of making that child who maybe is not able to sit because they have a special educational need, like it's kind of making them seem like a bad child even though they're not a bad child. But I do know there's a school that does love stickers. They do give stickers out to children, but I know a majority of schools I've been to, they prefer positive praise, which is just kind of like, oh, well done Jessica for sitting so beautifully, because that entices everyone else to do the same. Everyone else will listen, everyone else will follow as well. But I know some schools, or this one school I went to, they said you shouldn't directly, so like you shouldn't be saying, oh, Jessica's sitting beautifully. You can't directly say Jessica is sitting beautifully. Instead you would be like, oh, I can see some beautiful sitting, or I can see some children who are sitting so beautifully. Because by directly saying, oh, Jessica's sitting beautifully, you're kind of singling her out and you might be embarrassed. So it's important to just go generally, oh, these children here are sitting beautifully, or these children here are following instructions and are doing really well. But I know some schools, they think that you should be able to like directly say, okay, this child sat so beautifully. If a child sat beautifully, you should definitely recognize that, say, oh, that child is sitting so beautifully. So I guess it just also depends on the school's response to behavior, good behavior and bad behavior. Another thing that will help you ease into supply teaching is having like a list of questions. This can be for the teacher that's maybe helping you get up the slides or get up the PowerPoints for the day. One of the things that I always ask is, okay, what is the behavior like of the class? Meaning, what are things that I should look out for? Are they the type of class where certain children have certain roles? And then that will let you kind of prepare on how to react to kind of certain behaviors as well. I also ask about the special educational needs of the class. For example, who has what need? Is there a child who's autistic in the class? Is there a child with ADHD? Is there a child who might be deaf? Is there a child that has SEMH needs, which is social, emotional, mental health needs? So I know how to kind of prepare, and how I can also ask that teacher, what are the best strategies to help support that child? What do I need to make sure I do, or what do I need to make sure I don't do? For example, I know in one school there's like a child who they need to really ease into interacting with you before they fully interact with you, or before they fully kind of trust you. It's always important to know that that's coming and know how to interact with that, or how to manage that situation. So yeah, it's important to kind of ask the teacher these questions so you're able to kind of tackle those situations head on, especially because you're new. And so children are quite cheeky in the fact that they will play on certain things a little bit more. They might push the boundaries more than they usually would. You know, okay, this, if I know this child's doing this, I can do this. If I know this child's not coping well, I can send them to this corner, or I can let them talk to this teacher. Or if I know this child isn't accessing the learning as well as I know they could, I can talk to another teacher for them. I can maybe put them next to somewhere else. Or I know I need to personally work. Oh, another thing that's really important, well, what the lunchtime and the break time routines are and what additional adults are there. The additional adults is important because, especially if you like have younger children, this is throughout to be fair, especially have younger children, to dismiss them because you don't know their parents. So it's important kind of if that an additional adult who knows the children is able to dismiss them with you or even just for you, because then at least you're protecting yourself and you're protecting those children. Some schools dismiss differently. So some schools have folders where you tick off when a child has left and with who. Some schools have certain children that can't go with certain people, so that's something you need to keep in mind. But I know some schools, they don't have that. If a child says that's their parent, you just let them go. So again, that's another thing to ask about, and that's another thing just to keep in mind. Some schools dismiss differently too. At the end of the day, it's kind of just important to know, do what you need to do. If you've been told to just mark, tick and teach, tick and teach, don't overwhelm yourself with too much because you aren't necessarily the class teacher. If something doesn't get taught or finished for that day, write it down, let the teacher know. If there's a concept that children didn't understand and so it took you a whole lesson to do one thing, then let the teacher know. You shouldn't don't overwhelm yourself with not able to finish something, or not able to do one thing, or not able to finish something, even though it's important to at least, of course, put in the effort, try, teach what needs to be taught, but you shouldn't overwhelm yourself. If something doesn't get finished, there's always a next day, there's always a next time, there's always mornings, afternoons, the next day that the children continue with that learning. I think that's one thing that I struggled with a lot. Like, I would always stress out, like, oh my god, we haven't done this, we haven't done that, we haven't done this, we haven't done that. And then I'll talk to one of the other teachers from the other classes and they'll be like, oh yeah, we didn't do that, it's fine, like we didn't do that. Just know that there's always time for everything. If there isn't enough time, there's always the next day. Because I had this big thing, this especially was the case with resources, because sometimes I didn't have enough resources or I didn't have the right resources, and so I had to kind of improvise, or I had to let the children share, and then I felt bad, or I felt like I wasn't teaching well enough. Even though I was able to like use my initiative and adapt, I still felt like these children aren't. It's important to know if they've given you something and it's not enough, if you've asked and they still don't have anything, you can adapt, you can change. As long as learning is being had, as long as the right learning is being had, that's all that matters. And you can always tell the teacher, okay, this is the case, this is what happened. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to do another video more on the agency side of supply teaching, but today I just wanted to talk about like supply teaching in a particular school that you are in. If you have more questions about this supply teaching or teaching as a whole, please let me know in the comments below, and I'll definitely try to do a video on it. I hope you really enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.